Hey folks, Brian here. It's been a while since the last bike update. I now have over 1,000 miles, but the truth is I haven't been riding much until recently again because the brake caliper on the front got stuck and wouldn't work. And I was trying to figure out how to fix this for a long time, ordering parts, waiting, trying, failing, until finally I got them fixed again. So what happened was there was enough dirt and grime that got in between the piston and the caliper, and the pistons were moving out unevenly, and then they got stuck and they wouldn't move back. So I was constantly rubbing against the rotor, even bending the rotor, and so I knew I had to take this apart and clean it up. Initially, I followed the Park Tool video, thinking that all I needed was a little lubrication, a little cleaning, by pushing the handles slightly to move the pistons out, using a Q-tip with mineral oil and spreading the mineral oil, and then letting go of the handles to retract the pistons and get the mineral oil in there and lubricate it, but it just wouldn't work at all. So that's when I came up with a bright idea of doing a full cleaning and a brake bleed. Well, the bright idea was buying this Tektro brake bleeding kit. I think it doesn't have what is necessary to do this. I think I should have bought a better kit, which I did later, but I'll explain why it's not such a great kit. After the Park Tool cleaning tutorial didn't work, I decided to try to remove the pistons so I could take the whole caliper apart. So as usual, like many tutorial videos suggest, I adjusted the brakes so that the mineral oil was at the topmost level by moving it on the handlebar. Then I filled up one of the Tektro brake syringes up with fluid. I don't know why I put so much in it. That was a waste. Anyway, I took out one of the bleed screws at the bottom and I plugged in the syringe. And then what I did was I pressed the lever from the top and I tried to push the piston out. And as far as I recall, it did actually come out. But notice how the piston on the left-hand side, it didn't move. That one, no matter how much I pumped, it wouldn't come out. Of course, now that the piston was out, the brake fluid leaked all over and everything got greasy. Pretty nasty stuff, hard to clean off the fingers. Anyway, I then used an 8mm wrench to take off the other side with the fluid cable on the left-hand side in the picture. And then I used a Torx wrench, a real long one, to take apart the main bolts holding the caliper together. And you can see that we have the piston gone on one side and the piston still stuck in the other. After that, I put a metric screw on one of the open holes to block air from escaping, and then I used compressed air into the other hole to push out the piston. And for a while I was really holding down the compressed air and it wasn't coming out, and then it popped right into my face, square between the eyes. So be careful if you use this technique or use an air compressor. After that, it was pretty clear there was dirt and grime around the piston and on the seal. So I cleaned those off with isopropyl alcohol and wiped them clean. I then put everything back together. I put a light layer of mineral oil on the pistons to push them back in to the calipers and to lubricate the seals a bit. I did use some Loctite 242 on some bolts. I forgot which ones. And finally, I used these brake pads I bought off eBay. I got kind of tricked by the ad because the ad had the name of the Tektro brakes, but then these are completely somewhat different brakes, I think. Brake pads, that is. But you can see the new ones were so much thicker than the old ones. So I put everything back together and then it was time to put the fluid back in. What came after next, I don't remember very clearly. I know that I tried to put a syringe at the top with a funnel, pour mineral oil in through the top, and I was thinking that this would all pass through the system and out the bottom. And somehow I think it became a complete mess. The whole syringe fell over, mineral oil started pouring all over the ground, and at the bottom, I think there was just so much air in the system. Even when I closed it back up and pumped the brakes, it did nothing. The pistons didn't move at all. And I think somehow I ended up with even more brake fluid on the ground, and I gave up and realized I needed to get a better kit. So the next brake bleed kit I got from Amazon was called Psych Earth Brake Bleed Kit, but one of the brands it supports is of course Tektro, and it comes with a number of goodies compared to the Tektro brake bleed kit. It's got better syringes. It's got this brake piston stopper. You want to take your pads off and put this stopper in so you don't get brake fluid all over your pads and make them ineffective. And you can see it's got a much better system for making sure that the tubing doesn't pop off the syringe. And it's got these red clips that you can use to clamp the tubes. That way you can control the air leaving the system or the mineral oil leaving the system or going in, so you don't spill everything all over the place. And you can easily take off the tubing and the syringes without making a mess. Step 1, put the brake piston blocker, brake piston stopper into the caliper. Use a rubber band or something to hold it in place. Then step 2 is make sure your brake's mineral oil is at the top and flush, level at the top. Next, I put some tubing connected to the bottom, and I used one of the red clamps to stop it so that the mineral oil wouldn't come out of the tubing, and I could easily put on the syringe on the bottom without freaking out. I then did the same thing for the top. Finally, I filled up one of the syringes. I connected it to the bottom. Then I took an empty syringe and connected it to the top. Then it was simple as making sure the clamps were off. I pressed down on the bottom syringe, which pumped the fluid and the existing air all the way into the top syringe. After I was done and there was fluid at the top, and I could tell that there was no more air, I reattached this red clamp here at the top to kind of freeze the system. I closed the clamp at the bottom, and then I carefully unscrewed the tubing and things on the bottom. And then I put the bleed valve back on, and finally I went to the top, unscrewed the top, and I put back in the valve, whatever you call it, back at the top, and that was it. It was much easier, and I wish I had gotten this kit from the beginning. So after all this, I did take it for a test ride. I've been riding it for a couple weeks now. It was a little weak at the beginning, but over a course of a couple days, it started to work really well. So I'm back on the road again. Took a couple months, but it was a good experience, and I can now make a better video, I think, of bleeding the back brakes this time, and it shouldn't involve taking off the wheel or anything, as this one didn't either. So till then, thanks for watching.